Today on Let's Talk Schools, we're tackling the sensitive topic of teen mental health and how it impacts our students. Hello, welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Schools. I'm Mike Looney, the host of the show, and happen to be the superintendent of schools here in Fulton. Today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, and that is the mental health and well-being of our students. And we have two local experts in this field that work for Fulton County Schools. So I'm going to start with our fearless leader. Introduce yourself, tell us your title, tell us a bit about your background, and then we'll pitch it to your colleague.
Awesome. My name is Mercedes Jackson. I'm the coordinator of social work services for Fulton County Schools. I started my work as a school-based social worker in South Fulton, and then I was promoted to lead social worker before becoming the coordinator. So that's a little bit about my background.
Well, thank you for your service and your hard work.
Thank you.
And
yes, my name is Stephanie Schutte. I'm a I'm a social emotional school social worker. I work in the North Fulton area, and I've been here with Fulton County for about 25 years.
Wow, so you've been with the district for a good spell.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
How has the work changed over time in your experience since you've been here?
Well, when I came, we had a lot of schools to serve, and we didn't have quite as many supports in place. And so it's been really wonderful to see how the district has changed, how the support services have changed, and that we're able to do more intensive work with students across the district.
Right. Mercedes, so our school board has invested more resources and funding to get additional social workers and counselors in our district because the needs of our students continues to evolve, especially post-pandemic. So talk to us a little bit about the kinds of services that are offered through our social workers in our schools.
Absolutely. So to your point, absolutely post-pandemic, we have actually developed a tiered system of support specifically for social emotional needs. And there are 3 tiers. I'll break them down. Tier 1, what we have available is our student success skills. This is a program that's implemented by teachers 3 times a week for about 15 minutes. And it teaches our students basic socialization skills, how to be a friend, how to get along, how to problem solve. We also do campaigns. In December, we have our suicide awareness. In December, we have the It's Okay Not to Be Okay campaign. We all have bad days, right? And then in May, we have our mental health awareness. And that's implemented typically by our counselors, and our social workers support that. At Tier 2, we have our dynamic social workers. And they're going to do more of that small group programming. So they pull a select students that have the same need. They could talk about how to identify your feelings, coping skills. They may even have groups on testing anxiety or regular anxiety. And then at Tier 3 is really intensive. So we have our social emotional social workers, and they work with students that have known or suspected mental health concerns. And then we have our school-based social workers that do that intensive one-on-one. We're implementing a new program called Thriving Students, and it teaches coping skills to stressed out teens, as well as executive functioning skills. And then Dr. Looney, I'm really excited to make you aware that at every school we have an on-site mental health partner.
Wow, and that partner is funded. How did we get to that place?
Yeah, absolutely. So we developed a partnership with outside organizations, and they bring in licensed clinical therapists to meet our students one-on-one.
And does that cost parents money?
No, so some of the services are free, and then some of them are on a sliding scale. So we develop different partnerships, and sometimes we get grants to accommodate some of that cost that comes along with it at times as well.
So a lot of the things that you were talking about, some people might traditionally think of that as more counselor work than social worker work. What are the differences between those two employee categories?
Absolutely, great question. So, I take this from Shimona Harrell. She loves to say that counselors are more of the primary care doctor, right? So they see everyone. And social workers are more of the specialist. So we prioritize the crises work in our district. So in any given day, a social worker could have a student that is experiencing unstable housing. Maybe they didn't sleep under a roof last night, or a student that is distressed emotionally and they're threatening to harm themselves. Or they could have a student that's experiencing or even witnessing some form of abuse or neglect. So we're the specialists and we have to prioritize their social and emotional needs.
And do you have a partnership or a formal relationship with public agencies such as the Department of Family and Children's Services or mental health agencies that are operated by the county or state?
Absolutely, yep. So social workers work very closely with the Department of Family and Children's Services, and we're responsible for training all Fulton County staff on child abuse because we're all mandated reporters, which means that it's our job to keep our students safe, right? And then we also, as I stated, those partnerships. So we have one with Summit, Odyssey, Family Ties, right, and Chris 180. So those are our mental health partnerships that come into our school buildings to service our students one-on-one.
So it's often been said that you can't really get to a student's mind. A student can't learn until they feel safe and their social and emotional needs are met. Would you agree with that statement? And talk to us about your experience and leaning into that work with our students that have emotional needs.
Absolutely. We talk about all the different services that Fulton County Schools provides in order to equip a child to be 100% in the classroom. And so as we know, the CDC, the WHO tell us that the two most common mental health crises or mental health conditions for children are anxiety and depression. And so helping a child or a family to realize what those symptoms can look like, where they can go to receive support, to find out more about that, and then see what their options are is really important.
So how many schools do you serve?
I serve all the students up in the Zone 7.
In Zone 7. So if I'm a parent, and I know that we have other team members that serve the other areas, but if in Zone 7 specifically, if a parent has questions about how to get help, they notice that their child, is not he or she is not being themselves, where do they turn to?
Right. So I would start with making sure that the parent understands when there are concerns with a child's ability to live, laugh, and love. So if it is that a child has stopped being able to go out socially, a child does not have a reason that they feel like that there's something good for them in the world, they don't have a vision of the future. If a child is not able to laugh with friends, if a child is not able to engage in seeing things that are funny and having passion, if a child is not able to love, if they're not able to love themselves, if they don't have passions, if they don't see something that they want to look forward to. Those would be signs and symptoms of something that we're concerned about. Parents can contact the school, they can contact the school social worker, our school counselors, and let them know, like, I'm seeing a change in my child. You would notice, again, the whole picture. Teenagers love to sleep extra. They need to sleep extra.
That's normal?
That's normal, right. And teenagers need to have odd little eating and rebellions and things like that. So we want to make sure that parents see the whole picture, and that's why it's really nice to have an outside view on that. Talking with your school social worker, talking with your school counselor, those are two really great places to start. Also talking with a pediatrician, just to make sure we're ruling out anything that might be a medical or a hormonal or some other issue that can be really remedied appropriately that way. And also, I just really want to make sure all parents hear that if you have a concern with your child saying something like, I just don't know, I don't know what the point is anymore, I don't think anybody would care if I wasn't here, or I want to die, please seek immediate medical help. That I want to make sure that can be starting with a phone call. You can call 988, which is the suicide prevention hotline, or any of the other access of resources that we have through the schools and through the community.
There is this thought. I don't know how pervasive it is, but I've heard it before, and that's not the school's role. School's role is to teach reading, writing, and math. The truth of it is we can't get to that unless just the other needs of a student's met. How do we combat that perception that's somebody else's job?
Right, absolutely. So say you have a student that was previously performing well academically, but then they have started to decline, or a student has an uptick in behaviors. When social workers come to the table, we come to work collaboratively, and we're going to ask them more probing questions, such as, is the student's basic needs being met? Food, clothing, shelter, right? Are the student's social and emotional needs being met? Has the student experienced some form of large life trauma, or maybe they have some sort of hardship that they're experiencing and they're having a hard time getting through it? Understanding that the outside world comes into the school building, and while we would love to just address the academic side of it, if we don't address the student's social and emotional needs, it will show up in their work and in their behaviors. And so that's why I'm so proud of the work that we're doing here in Fulton County of addressing the students' social emotional needs, and that the social workers are there. Oftentimes we as social workers have this well-intended to-do list, right? But if you walk into the building and the student is in crisis, we drop everything to meet the needs of the student. And so while we would love, to just focus on the academics, we can't, because it's very important that we see the whole child, because their social and emotional well-being has a huge impact on how they perform academically and behaviorally.
I want to ask you a loaded question. I'm not really sure
Sure.
I should do this, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Talk to me.
What role does social media and handheld devices play in the mental well-being of our students in today's society?
Great question. And so there are actually lots of studies around that. So a lot of people are wondering the same. So we do have correlation and not causation, right? But the correlation is showing that we have an increase in anxiety, right? So the students are associating their self-esteem with how many likes they get on a picture, right? And this social media world, it was intended for us to connect when we couldn't be, right, in person. But the problem is that now our students are struggling to connect when they are next to their peers. They're struggling to develop those interpersonal skills and how to solve a simple conflict, right? And it results in more behaviors. And then oftentimes when they're behind the screen, they get more comfortable saying things that they maybe wouldn't say when they're sitting next to someone. And that cyberbullying comes into effect, right? And the isolation, right? These people post a snapshot of themselves on social media, and then a kid who's so innocent goes and compares themselves, and it steals their joy. And so they wonder, I have 6,000 followers, but I still feel alone, right? I got all of these great pictures, but mine aren't as great as the next person. And it begins to weigh on their emotional well-being, in addition to not being able to build healthy relationships with their peers. And so I'm sitting next to this person, but I only know how to engage with you through a phone. And so it has brought about a great need for us to still teach those very important social skills to our students.
So one of the things that breaks my heart as I go to dinner or sitting at a restaurant and I see a beautiful family sitting at a table nearby, and every person at the table is on their phone, texting or looking at social media rather than interacting. What advice what words of caution or advice, I guess, would we give to parents to say, hey, social media and these devices have a place in our lives, but it really starts at home in many ways. And so if you're not at the dinner table having conversations and everybody's on their device, what would you say to parents about that?
First off, I think you did a great job, and we could probably just stop right there and put a period on it. But I think that what we've tried to do when we talk with parents is just help them to remember that these are all skills that youth have to learn, that our children have to learn some of those things. As you said, Mercedes, some of the post-pandemic responses, how do we interact with others, and that the importance is to practice it. So it practices at the dinner table, it practices in the car, it practices at uncomfortable times. And it's okay to be uncomfortable. I'm not really sure how to do a conversation about that. And that's something that I know when we had our Family Matters, that was another time, an opportunity for parents to learn more ways that they can have conversations with children or with their child, and that the child then can go ahead and practice that as well.
Mercedes, is there a location on our website, or is there a go-to place for parents to get questions answered, to find resources for support?
Absolutely. So it's actually the social workers page. So if the parents go to fultonschools.org and click department, go down to social work, we have tons of resources readily available to them, as well as CHOA. They have Strong for Life that has tons of resources that are about the social and emotional well-being of our students. So we have it at Fulton County, and they can also find it there through the medical world.
Right. You know, folks, it's often been said, you can't get to a student's mind until you get to their heart. And the social workers in Fulton County Schools really lean in and do a fantastic job of supporting families and the needs of our students socially, emotionally. We didn't talk about the emotional and social needs of our employees. We'll save that for our next time, but that's a very important topic as well. Thank you so much for joining Let's Talk Schools. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And now, let's go around the district in 90 seconds. That's it for our show this week. Let's keep this conversation going. We'd love to hear from you on our social media platforms. Join us next time on Let's Talk Schools, and as always, thank you for watching.